sort of waiting for the off, isn't it?
Right.
Right, where does it go, yeah? Where does it go, yes?
Really?
Yeah.
Where would you like eye lines?
Anywhere you would
That's on
like.
the eyes.
Like to start off, welcome to Queen, Michael. Over the years you've got a distinguished career. It was only until I bought your book.
Oh, you've bought the book already?
I bought the book.
Oh my
No,
goodness.
I will buy another one because this one was already signed, funny enough, and I like to have one signed personally.
Oh.
But I didn't know how much work you actually did. The films, okay, you are known in Star Wars as Admiral Oswald. But the amount of things you've actually sort of did over the years that you've started is tremendous, you know. Sort of.
Well, I've been very lucky, and very talented, of course.
Of course.
And it is something in the order of 800 televisions and 38 feature films. And yes, you're right about Star Wars. First and foremost, of course, I'm remembered for not the demon headmaster. No. That was somebody else. No, but mine was even more of a demon because he had a heart of gold as well, somewhere deep down inside. I am remembered first and foremost for Mr. Bronson, Grange Hill, recognised, I should say. And yes, Star Wars comes next, and then the most surprising things. I was coming back, we were talking earlier that my main base is on the Isle of Wight, and I was coming back from London to Portsmouth and was going up to the buffet for a bevy or something. It's a nice place so you can start to relax, don't you, before you get home. And I got to the connecting between the two different carriages, and there was this enormous bloke, rings coming out of everywhere. And I thought, oh God, my hour has come, you know, there was nobody there to protect me, I'm going to get mugged or something. But not a bit of it. He said, I know the face, but I can't put a name to it. And I said, mate, you've made my day. That is exactly the sort of actor I set out to be, really. And although Star Wars and Grange Hill and, of course, Doctor Who played a big part in my life, George Lucas says that my death was the best screen death he'd ever seen, which was very nice of him. Surprising things do happen. I was at a convention in the Midlands somewhere, and this rather well-spoken lady, she said, weren't you Mr. Bronson? And I said, yes. And an old boy over the other side of the dining room said, blow that, madam, I remembered him from Colditz. So, you know, occasionally something like that comes up and surprises you, to say the least. But I just consider myself, you know, on a more serious note, if you like. Yes, I suppose talent does come into it. I was going to I told one of my dear Roger Moore stories earlier. But this is another little one. We were out on roads, on roads, shooting Escape to Athena, and I don't know why they call them rushes, because rushes, you know, they have to go back to the UK, then come all the way back out to Rhodes, and so about a fortnight or so since we shot the piece, all those particular scenes, and we were watching a scene between Roger and Stephanie Powers. And you see everything in rushes, everyone that went wrong, and when you had to go back and the sound wasn't by itself. And at the end of it, Roger turned to me and he said, what do you think? So I said, I think it's bloody good, Roger. He said, oh, for goodness sake, don't say that. You'll shatter the myth. Because he has made it on the fact that he only raises one eyebrow and this sort of thing, you know. But in fact, he wouldn't have got where he is and stayed where he is if he wasn't a damn good film actor. Now listen, I'm not going to blether on without without questions, because as I again said earlier, it is.
The appreciation.
Well, it's silly of me, I think, or anybody, to get up there and start talking. That's why at Q&As I like to have questions, and then at least I'm telling somebody what they want to know.
Right. Well, you were born and raised in Aberdeen.
Yes.
You started off in RADA, and you were halfway through your RADA course, and then unfortunately you had to go into the armed forces.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's, unfortunately, is, with respect, perhaps not the right word, because, yes, I was miffed at having to break the course. My number, they say you never forget your number. My number was 5050481, and they stopped national service at 5050500. And so if I'd stayed and finished the course at RADA, I would have missed national service. But in a funny sort of way, you know, once I resigned myself to the fact, it went really rather well. I mean, you've read the book, so you know how brave I was guarding Hackney Green Airfield. Well, I have had scores of letters, and there's one guy, he's a tax inspector, for God's sake, who has, he lives in that part of the world, and he's gone down to the local library and dug up the archives, looked and said, well, you couldn't have been the first because, is it Dakotas couldn't have landed there? But no, it could not have been the scenes with Dakotas and the little planes in, because Dakotas couldn't land. But in the first 10 minutes of the movie, there are the smaller planes, or whatever they were, on their own. And he says, I think that, and so we still go on the dialogue. In fact, in the second book, I have, with his permission, of course, printed his letters as I received them as an epilogue, because it's fascinating what he's done. But yes, I'm a son of the manse, me, you know. My father was a minister of the Kerk, and quite a wise gentleman too, I think.
You also took on your mother's maiden name as...
Yeah, I did, because at the time, Anthony Perkins was, I mean, you've never heard of Anthony Perkins, have you? No, you see. But at the time, Anthony Perkins was new and very hot, and I wanted to be me. And anyway, I do think that Sheard is a better name anyway. Looks better on the billboards.
After you left RADA, you started off in repertory theatre, and then you went on to doing Shakespeare. That's when you met one of the greatest friends, I would say, Sir Laurence Olivier.
Yeah. I mean, he gave me the subtitle to my book, but in fact, that was a little bit later. It was on a film set that I met him. And he said, we are all rogues, vagabonds and bums, dear boy. Some of us are just a little higher up the slope than others. He was a lovely man. And so I said, do you mind if I use that, if I ever write about my experiences? No, of course not. But in the Middle Ages, you see, this is the American use of the word, and in the Middle Ages, actors were bums. They went from village to village and just acted their little plays and what have you in the street.
You were also a great friend of yours was Dame Penny Ashcroft as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, I kid you not, I have got masses of friends in the business, and I cannot, off the top of my head, think of one enemy. It's a bit like ships that pass in the night, you know. I mean, Sophie up there, she and I have shared agents 3 times, I think. I was going to do a play with Sil. What was it called? Oh dear, now you lot probably know. It was a Joe Walton play. Huh?
Anybody?
Joe Walton play, and it was put on sort of off London as opposed to off Broadway. I didn't do it in the end because of other commitments, and I wasn't awfully keen on the way the funeral games, it was called, there you go. Wasn't too keen on the way they were going to stage it, but don't misunderstand me. I think doing lovely things with Shakespeare and playing the modern and all the rest of it's very good. But yeah, I've seen them, both of them, very recently, and I'm down, I know, to do a couple of conventions with Soph. But then you pick up the threads, just as though it were yesterday. I mean, it's one of the lovely things about our business. And yes, I did a play, or a film really, for Auntie BBC with Peggy, and she would hate to have heard you refer to her as Dame. The first morning we were filming down on the Nene Valley Railway, and she called us all into the green room, or the waiting room, or whatever it is. Green room in our case, I suppose. And she said, now look, I'm Peggy or Peg. I don't want to hear Dame mentioned once, right? Right. Lovely person. And in fact, that won the BAFTA award for the best one-off of the year. I've got, or been associated with 3 productions that have won BAFTA, you know. Grange Hill, of course, and a series we did for BBC Scotland called Taking Over the Asylum. Now then, who is the real expert on Doctor Who in this room? Right. Now, apart from that old reprobate, who, bless his heart, has done a foreword to the new book, and anyway, Nick Courtney played the same part all the time, except once. I know my Doctor Who fairly well myself. I have worked with more doctors than any other actor, correct?
Yes.
I don't, in fact, I saw Terry Walsh the other day, and he said, you are Rahul. And I said, well, I beg your pardon. He said, well, perhaps you're right. But there are people, I don't know, Terry worked, how many he worked with, but people like Pat Gorman, Pat. But with respect, lovely, but they are, yes, they're actors, but they're background or whatever. And so I'm glad you have verified that. And I did 2 with Tom, you see, so that makes up for it in a way, doesn't it? Because we should talk about Doctor Who a bit, shouldn't we?
Yes, we'll come into that.
Oh, were you? Right.
We want to come to it now. Your first actual the Doctor Who part was in the Ark.
That's right.
With William Hartnell. In your book you said William Hartnell is a very nice man.
Well, you should read the second book.
Very, very nice man.
Well, I will be...
It also punches the second book, I presume.
No, it's not that. It is... My books are not kiss and tell, they're love stories. But I wanted maybe to just get a little bit more. Anyway, for all I know, he is, or was, a very nice man. But you see, I've been used to seeing him in films. And when he was a youngster, he was known as Billy. And the first morning's rehearsal, I was so delighted. It was actually, I think, only my third telly, I think. I can't remember now. But I know I was doing a Dixon of Dock Green the following week. Anyway, I got into rehearsal, and I don't know, it could have been nerves, I suppose, but I bounded up to him and I said, "Good morning, Billy. My name is Michael Sheard, you see." And no, you don't do that sort of thing. So apart really from saying the lines, he never spoke to me again the whole time.
A lot of other actors have come forward and say he was a bit cantankerous. There was one poor chap when the story was The Kings of Marinus. William Hartnell had to hit this avoid over the head with his cane stick. And the actor, he's an actor in the costume. He never saw his face at all. But the first take, he hit him over the head, and it was a whopping big smack on the back of the head. And he seems for stars. Apparently, afterwards, he wrote to the director and said, "Look, can you have a word with Mr. Hartnell, please? I nearly passed out then because he hit me so hard."
Oh.
So he went up to Mr. Hartnell and said, "Look, excuse me, when you do the scene of you hitting him over the head, can you sort of make sure it's a light one?" He went, "Okay, right." The take two, apparently he hit him so hard again that he nearly collapsed. So, there have been bits, but because William Hartnell's not here no more, he can't even defend himself. So either they're talk stories or...
Well, I don't know. I mean,
But it was another one about William Hartnell that he was... They took a break in filming, and he had to go into his room and wait for his cue, where all the other actors were out milling around somewhere or whatever. And someone said, "The cue, the doctor or William Hartnell or whatever, nothing happened. Not one thing." And I sort of all looked round, where is he? And his door was just sort of like a sliding door, because it was sort of science fiction. You couldn't have a door handle all by it. In the end, they got a floor manager went over, slipped the door open, and there was William Hartnell, fast asleep. So
wow.
it's but that was when he was really getting into when he was about last year he did Doctor Who.
I don't know. I mean, it's I have always worked with everybody in exactly the same way. If they're cantankerous or whatever, it's okay. We wait until they're not, you know. But that's why I think I got so many chums. You haven't asked me, so I will pretend you have asked me who's my favourite Doctor. You were going to ask me, weren't you?
I would ask you, yes. I was going to come to that.
Oh, were you sorry?
I try and sort of work along. I'm new to this game as well.
Well, fair enough. If you'd like to leave it till later, but I always find it a very difficult question to ask, quite honestly. It's in view of something that perhaps you don't yet know, I could almost say me. Does that mean anything to anybody? You heard it here first. But I enjoyed working with all of them. I mean, I think Sylvester's super, and the way that each one of them created their character. I loved working with Tom. We actually very nearly got a movie going, he and I, Doctor Who movie. But for me, if I sit on the other side of the camera for a moment, for me, there will never be a better Doctor than John. I think he was super. And I believe that is one of the reasons that I was asked to go to the Isle of Man with Katie when she went over there. Because The Mind of Evil was a lovely story to do, and she and I got on like a house on fire. In fact, where we did go, she's a naughty girl. we got to the, I got to the departure lounge, see, it must have been London Airport. And I was sitting there reading my paper, or whatever, and suddenly, this socking great kiss was planted right there. And that was dear Soph. We had a great weekend. But I must get a copy of that thing from Barnfather. But, shall I tell you my Doctor Who story now? Get it out of the way. Would you like me to?
Improvements of Mars, would that be?
No. I was approached, gosh, must be in the middle of last year, by an independent director, producer, who said, have you ever thought of playing Doctor Who, you see? I thought, this is a bit, you know. So I said, why should you ask that question? He said, well, you know the Peter Cushing films? I said, yes. Well, in fact, there were 3 optioned, and only 2 were ever made.
That's right. Yeah.
And he said that I've got... Sorry?
Because they dropped it last minute, the 3rd
Well,
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
But it hasn't been made, but the option.
The option.
Anyway, he's got, as far as I know, they're still beavering away, because since then, of course, people have died and the rights have moved on to somebody else, and so on, so on, so on.
It's the old copyright angle.
I mean, it could go on forever. But he said, if I can unravel it, would you be interested in playing the Doctor? And I said, you try and stop me, mate. Yeah, I'd love to. Because if he gets the rights, he'll get the rights to all 3, you see, and then he can twist it and make the last one first and do the other 2 as well. Because I think, I hope you agree, that they could be made better.
Oh, yeah.
You know, than those.
when they were first,
Especially now.
back in the 60s, they made the sort of...
but
comedy accent.
yeah, but I don't, you see, I frankly hated that one with Paul McGann. It wasn't Doctor Who. Imagine Doctor Who kissing his leading lady. Oh, dear. I mean, that's sort of...
Not on, is it?
It isn't.
Not on at
It
all.
isn't on at all.
The only best part about that was the actual title music, I thought, and after that it was went downhill.
I can't.
Like that a little bit with McCoy, actually. I thought McCoy.
McCoy, so yeah, and after that it just went...
After that, they lost the plot.
Well, it's, you wait. I don't know if you are interested at all in the new Star Wars, but I saw it in Canada. There's a charity performance of this that is Ian McDermott or something. He was in both, and he's got George to allow him to have a charity performance in the afternoon before it opens or something, and the tickets are 200 quid each, and they've been sold out for yonks. I won't say any more about that really, because you'll have to go and see it yourself. Yourselves rather, because I will say I was very disappointed. And I don't think that Doctor Who, if they make a movie, and if I'm associated with it, I would hate, excuse me, to think we would lose.
Well, Doctor Who was strongly the writing that's made what made Who
Yeah.
the difference. The strongest Doctor Who was always in the writing.
That's
Don't
right,
care what
in
anyone
the
says.
appearance.
If it was written well,
Yeah,
the story was
that's it.
Yes, but it also had a sort of, well, nostalgia is the wrong word. You know, everybody sort of embraced it somehow, you know.
Yeah, but it had a common feel that at different levels of the family
Yeah.
to watch.
Oh,
That
yeah.
was what made it.
Yeah.
Laid the success of the show.
There is a cheeky little bit in my new book, actually. The Edinburgh Doctor Who Appreciation Society, they have little evenings, shall we say, similar to this in a way. And they also visit other conventions. And one, he's a doctor actually, not a... it might be, I don't know. What is Doctor Who a doctor of? If you see what I mean.
Everything.
Everything, right. Well, Dr. Martin Rogerson is a doctor of science. So he's sort of partway there, but he's very, very into Doctor Who. And he built this TARDIS, which is absolutely correct to the last detail. There's a little picture in photograph in the new book of me just looking out of the TARDIS's door. And my wife came up, and you have to think about this now. She came up with the most wonderful caption. If you bear in mind what we've just been talking about, the caption is, "Who's next?" And if there is a third volume, heaven help me, I'm halfway through the proofs of this one now, but if there is, we've had Yes, Mr. Bronson, Yes, Admiral. What about Yes, Who? And you will all be in it, you see.
Have you ever been, well, at the moment they're doing audio plays now for Doctor Who.
Yes.
Have you been offered a part in that yet?
The answer is I have been approached. Problem is finding the time. Who's that man? Bill somebody or other.
You feel Braggs.
Big brags.
He approached me, I think, at the last Panopticon, I'm not sure. Said he'd like me to do something of his. But I made the mistake of looking at some of what he'd done, and it may have been the early stuff, I don't know.
Oh, well, those are the video ones he did. Like Auton, Auton 2, or...
Yeah.
No, that's the band father.
Is
Oh,
it?
Yeah.
Oh, it's the same way.
Different.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, that's
I don't
yeah,
know.
it's different.
Bill Braggs.
Bill Braggs is a stranger and...
That's right, yes, yes.
Played by Colin.
Yes.
Colin Baker,
Yeah. I mean, it's good. I'm all for it. I thought Downtime almost got there, you know.
But Downtime was good. It was a pity that the Yetis were a bit shoddy. But the actual acting of it was good. Whereas you had... what was the one that came out just before that?
That was the first one, wasn't it? Shakedown.
That's it, the Shakedown was marvellous. The costumes for the Sontarans were actually something brilliant, but as for the story...
Yeah, I know. Well, it's
it never made it, did it?
Yeah.
I don't know if you felt that.
Well, it's always difficult because they're not...
Shakedown was a far better production, but the actual story was very weak.
Yeah.
But with Downtime, the actual story was very strong and the actors were strong in it. But the actual costume department, the actual was...
well, it comes down to money again, doesn't it? I'm afraid. Listen, I'm going to ask you if we can diversify a little.
Fine.
Because I love doing this. I want a question from everybody in the room. Right? And then at least I've said something that people want to hear, you see. I mean, it should be ladies first, shouldn't it? There must be something you're dying to know. Well? No. All right, well, I'm not going to let you off the hook. Who's got a question?
What was it like playing Hitler in the Tomorrow People?
Well, he wasn't Hitler,
Well,
really.
no,
He was,
yeah,
I thought you were going to say Indiana Jones. Well, it's a funny one, actually.
Yeah,
we rehearsed it and got it up to go into the studio, and there was a strike, technician strike. And I was due to go on and do a play of the month in Scotland, an updated version of Henrik Ibsen's An Enemy of the People, which was a very huge, great big production. Anyway, cut a long story short, when it was remounted, I couldn't make the rehearsals because I was filming on the other. And they just gave me the 2 studio days off. Ah, trooper that I am, I rushed down to London, up to Thames Television, spent 2 days recording it, having not rehearsed it for 6 weeks or more, you know, and then dashed back again to the location. Hitler, it's a funny one, that, actually, because my wife is Jewish. And when I was first offered the part in a film called Rogue Male, with Peter O'Toole.
I can't remember that.
Yeah. And I said, well, what do you reckon, love? And she said, don't be so silly. Go ahead and do it. Now, the only way I could play the part is to almost physically take the atrocities, put them in a cupboard and lock the door. Then you are left with a fascinating madman to play. And it really is, you know, quite interesting. Indiana Jones, of course, that was, well, you'll have to read. Have you read the book?
No.
Has he read the book? Ah. Well, you'll have to.
Oh,
See what?
just one of my quick reads. Nothing too detailed.
But you also played Hitler another time as well, didn't you?
I've played
You played him
him.
twice. You played him in The Dirty Dozen Next Mission.
That's right. I think I played him 4 times altogether. There's another one somewhere, but I can't. I've also played Himmler, which led to the one part that I'm afraid, as I've got something out of every part I played, except this once. And I did it, I suppose, out of vanity, because I was off the part of Goering, and so I thought, oh, well, I ought to complete the
Trio.
the trio. But my God, that was awful. Now, you've read the book, so you know what it was in. No? You dipped into it. You rotter. You dipped.
Well, actually, sort of doing this interview, after doing this interview, I had to find as much sort of...
Of course you did, of course.
Information I could possibly...
Well, I will tell you. There was one good thing about it, and that was I got to work with little Kenneth Connor, whom I'd admired for years. And then he died very shortly afterwards, so that was the bonus. But it was very, very late on in a lower low. My God, it was awful. Anyway, that's another story. Have you got your question yet?
Anything.
Oh dear, well come on, somebody else give me a question.
Can you tell us what your thoughts are generally about TV as it is now, Michael? Because to me, you've got one of those faces that I always associate with, you know, going back a few years when we used to get such a wealth of good television, really.
Well, yeah, I know exactly what you mean, and the days when one used to go out, well, like the Doctor Who's, and you do your pre-filming, and then you'd come and rehearse it, and then you'd go into the studio. In a way, well, that has its advantages and its disadvantages, because in a way, it's sort of modelled on the theatre, in that you rehearse and then you do a performance. But I think the methods now are better. Rehearse record is good. The video tape is far better than it used to be. Very much more sensitive. And film and television really have almost merged. Film is still far better than video. I mean, if you've ever seen a video blown up to movie size, it's very grainy. 35 is better than, and so on. You know, I mean, all the usual stock things. But I miss the old days. Having said that, there was a chance to meet old chums, and whereas now you will be called on, let's say, day 6. And one of your best mates might be called on day 10, and you'll never see each other. Whereas there was a camaraderie, I think, in it, you know. Dear old Acton Hilton, I don't know if, I suppose it's still around, but I haven't been there for a long time now. You just go out and you do it on occasion, and as I say, you don't meet your chums, which I think is a great shame. Or you don't meet them so regularly as you used to. But having said that, I think if the right people take over the BBC, I think they can pull it back, standard-wise anyway, to what it was. I think standards have gone down. A lot of people say that to me. I mean, okay.
There's no drama there, was there?
Well, I know
It's always fly on the wall TV,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
roadworks and
Sure, yeah.
cops.
I mean, it will come full circle again. I mean, somebody came up to me the other day, which is very sweet, and I'm not now being my usual boisterous self. I'm trying to be serious for a minute. And they were talking about Grange Hill, and they said it really isn't as good as it was when you were in it. Now, they could easily have said when Gwyneth Powell was in it, as Mrs. McCluskey and all those. But I've heard from other people that that Grange Hill is suffering from the same problem. They're not knitting any longer. There's far more done straight on video than there used to be. So there's not so much studio, and I think it's a great shame. Having said that, of course, then I can go back to my boisterousness and say, well, of course, I'm not in it anymore, so that's the main reason. But I think if they did, I mean, you lot must know about this far better than I, but if Doctor Who were to come back, notwithstanding what I said before, because that would be a movie anyway, if it were to come back as a television series, they would have to surely try and recapture something of what we had when we were making it. Otherwise, I honestly don't think it would work.
No, you're right there. It's got to have something.
You know, I mean, the
Yeah.
stories, well, Sophie, in fact, was approached, I don't know whether it was just a bit of publicity or newspaper nonsense, but would she like to play the Doctor? You remember that?
Yeah, I've got that sort of room in the head.
But that's been going on for some time.
Well,
That's been going on for years.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
go back to
was it
Baker.
not Dora Bryan, the other one? Oh, gosh.
One who played Patsy and Fab.
Joanna Lamb.
Yeah, Joanna Lumley.
Yes,
That's
yeah.
been going on since the 70s, when,
Yeah.
before they had Tom Baker. He's always got any female, so...
I don't see why not. I don't see why not. It would be quite interesting, but that would be in a way going back to what they had before. It's a shame, I think. But at the same time, I think we have to be realistic and realise that things are moving forward. I mean, there's going to come a time when we won't need less tripods or anything like that at all. That, which I'm sure you all recognise, given to me by Andrew Beach, that will be the camera. Okay? And we'll sit and we'll have a conversation and it'll all dong. Mind you, in fact it is, but don't tell anyone. Okay, that's you two out of the way. Now we're concentrating on this end. You've got must have a question.
Have you any projects you're working on at the moment?
Oh, I'm glad you asked me. Funnily enough, science fiction is playing a big part in my life at the moment. Have you heard of a series called First Frontier? Right. Back end of a year ago, last February actually, I had this phone call, a guy called Andrew Diamond. Now this is interesting because it has a sort of Doctor Who connection, but there we go, I'll come to that in a minute. And he said he'd been given my telephone number by my agent, and I said, yes, I know. She told me that, she asked me whether she could pass that. So, and he said, I'd like to send you a script, or the outline, it was only an outline at this stage, called First Frontier, because I'd like you to look at the part of Mackian. Now, jumping forward about 600 months, or whatever, they sent me the script, and it was the best first draft script I've ever read, full of imagination. About this, he's not a youngster, he's a troubleshooter, I suppose, and he's also got a wife and daughter, but they're separated. and it's set in the year 2043. And Machian is a sort of evil Alec Guinness from Star Wars, who sits in the middle of the universe and manipulates planets. Jim Mortimer. Now that's the first Doctor Who connection. Any of you ever read the Doctor Who books?
He writes a few new inventions.
Yeah, he's done a lot of those.
Yeah.
And he's also done Cracker and so on and so forth. But he has got the most wonderful sense of humour, which he pops in every so often. It opens, the whole thing opens, there's this prison which is a glass dome, a tower rather, sorry, and you go in at the bottom and you work your way up as you get nearer your time for release. And it actually opens on me in the bottom, and I take my eye out and there's a little laser inside. But the one that I asked permission if I could tell is to illustrate his sense of humour. Who knows the old, very old, I should imagine, little poem, little birdie flying high, dropping ammo as you fly, angry farmer wiping eye, thanking God that cows don't fly. Now I'm sure that Jim, who has written the script, was thinking of that when he, this one scene, they're in an asteroid and they're all weighted down, and in the middle of the conversation a herd of cows fly past, and wonderful touches like that. Anyway, that is the animation, I think, is now completed, and that is in the hands of the executive producer, name of Strixon. There. So there's the other Doctor.
Oh, that's how it goes, yeah.
So that's one. I've also got, well, I would say 2.5 movies. There's a movie which isn't what you think it might be. It's called Millennium Blue, which is being made and photographed as well by, that's a sad thing actually, Gilbert Taylor, who's a wonderful cinematographer. But he's now in his 80s, and he's just fit as a flea, but he cannot get insurance. Same goes for Norman Wisdom. When I was out in the Isle of Man, I met Norman. I've admired Norman Wisdom for so many years. And he's 86, and Katie and I were, we'd just done the auction, and we were about to, whilst they counted up money and everything, about to pick the raffle. And one of the organisers said, oh, just a very special guest has arrived. Well, you know that Norman lives on the Isle of Man, I presume. And in walked Norman. And between there, coming in at the door on the stage, he did a pratfall, 86 years old. Smack! And I asked him, I said, would you like to help with the raffle? He said, help you with the raffle, you will help me. And he proceeded to pick out these 30 tickets, and he had something to say for everyone. One I remember, he obviously had seen the girl with the ticket in the front row, and he happened to pick her out. So I said, well, I've got a 4 here, another 4, and what would you like? Would you like a 2? And it's you, and it's wonderful. Anyway, Gilbert, to go back to him, who did, way back, things like The Guinea Pig with Richard Attenborough, and of course Star Wars, as I say. But he's lucky because his son Peter is also a cinematographer, and so Peter is going to officially light it, and Gil will act as advisor, if you like. So there's that one. There's a film called Chaos. And now, who is likely to know? You probably would remember a film called The Quiet Man. Anybody else remember a film called The Quiet Man?
John Wayne.
Yes.
John Wayne.
Yeah.
Very
Now,
good film.
a super film. Obviously set in Ireland. this script arrives. Yes, Victor McCandless and all that. The script arrives on my doormat. And I looked down. I knew it was coming, but my agent said, because she knows how much I like or love The Quiet Man, so she said, look, I'm not telling you, there's a script arrived. Connemara days. So I thought, well, that looks interesting. It's only a film about the making of The Quiet Man. And there's a lovely little love story about one of the American crew and an Irish colleen. And it is the most charming piece. And I play the man from the electricity board. Because when John Ford came over to Ireland to look for locations, and he found this perfect little village, which is, you know, it's all right, it's very sort of American Irish, but it's beautiful. Only one problem, there was no electricity. So this village got electricity courtesy of Hollywood. And that's true. And my chap is, he's a bit of a shyster actually, because he's got a whole lot of electrical equipment which he offloads on the local ironmonger. Trouble is, it's AC as opposed to DC or whatever, and so in the end he gets chased out of town. But so there's that one as well, which hopefully will go back end of summer. Chaos is a sort of an Omen type story. I play a crusading vicar called Duggan. But I said it was tending to be very sci-fi orientated in my life at the moment, because I just finished doing the voice for Professor Smith. It's spelled N-U actually, but he's a little bit of a... that happened at rehearsal actually, I just naturally said new. And that is about a lovely bunch of people who live inside the moon and all their different adventures and lovely creatures. They deserve and will make a lot of money for the artist from merchandising. Now we're back to the other Star Wars movie again. I couldn't help sitting there watching this. Every single way you looked, turned, there's a race. The commentator's got two heads. And all I could see were these dollies lined up saying merchandising, millions, millions, millions. Which is a shame. So there's another. I'm halfway through this one actually, which sounds awfully rude, but it's not. Do you know what swan upping is?
No.
Right. It's actually a tradition that goes back to the 13th century. It's the royal, the vintners, and the dyers. And they start in London, all in their beautiful regalia, and they row up the Thames. And it's now got obviously a very necessary purpose, but in the past they counted the swans to make sure that the monarch swans had no markings, and the others had either one or two nicks in their beak. But now, of course, they do marvellous work with as the nesting time corresponds to the fishing season, and they get gut wound round and all that sort of thing. But I'm doing the commentary. I do a lot of voice work now, which is great fun. And again, science fiction, for goodness sake. I must have that sort of face, either Germans or science fiction. There is a series which I believe is shown over here on Channel 5, made in Canada, called Lex.
Yeah.
L-E-X-X?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's it, yeah.
Thursday
And there's a,
nights.
what?
On Thursday nights.
Oh, is it? There's a Randy robot
Stanley,
who only has a head or something.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
golly.
It's very surreal.
Very
Oh, is it? I love it. Yeah. Well, I'm supposed to be doing that. I'm also, although it's been suspended for the moment, Babylon 5.
Yeah, the main series is finished, unless it was
No, it's not. It's the next one.
the spin-off.
Yeah, and they've
Well,
done
it was based in 13, but it's been suspended at the moment because there's some. Well, as far as I was told, it was cancelled.
No, my
Right.
understanding, or my agent's
Yeah.
understanding, is that they're going to show those 13,
Yeah.
and if they're successful, then they will go on.
Oh right.
Because Michael Joe, or Joe Michael, I can't
Yeah,
pronounce
well,
it.
unpronounceable name. Yes.
He likes the English accent. Now, bear that in mind. The two actors that are going over there are me and
Yeah.
Gareth Thomas, for God's sake. So, there's that. I mean, really, the answer to your question is that it happily goes on, you know. And God knows how I managed to write the second book. Because the first one, they approached me, gosh, it must be 7 years ago now, and said, we'd like a book about the business from a different angle. And because you've done all these tellies and so on, we thought that you would be the one to do it. And I said, yeah, okay, I'll have a go. And the first edition sold out before it got to the shops. And I was gobsmacked, and I think the publishers are still recovering. The difference with the first one and the second is that they just allowed me to tap away between engagements. There was no deadline. Took me out for lunch last September. It's going awfully well, Michael. Yes, it is, isn't it? Selling very well at conventions. Yes. Couldn't give us another, could you? I said, hang on. You know, it's you can't just go like that and produce a book. And they said, oh, don't worry, we don't need it yet. I said, well, when do you want it? Oh, about next, mark this, about next July. I said, I see, you want it to be more sci-fi orientated and come out when the new Star Wars has its crafty so-and-so. Anyway, I tapped away, and I've got to ring up my editor tomorrow morning because I was away, the proofs arrived, and Ros read them, and I have nearly done them, but whereas proofreading is really to make sure that no spelling mistakes or you haven't left off a comma, full stop, but I'm afraid I've gone a bit further than that and just tightened it up a little bit. So I've got to ring her and say, I'm awfully sorry, but I've gone a bit further. Anyway, it's only a question of transferring it onto a floppy disk. Now that really goes back to what we were talking about earlier. For a long time, in fact, Yes, Mr. Bronson was written on my lovely little Amstrad. Never let me down, tap, tap, tap. He now sits behind me in the office because Andrew Diamond, producer of First Frontier, his hobby is building computers. I came back from location and there was this thing sitting there. Oh, I can scan, because Ros paints. I can scan in my pictures and I can do this and that. I said, yeah, if you can work out how to work the flipping thing. And in fact, I left it in the book because I went off, Ros was out at an exhibition somewhere or something, and I said, no, we'll have the afternoon off. Went to watch Grandstand, which I love to do. Don't get much opportunity now, so I'm away every weekend. Came back, and this monster had devoured everything I'd written that morning. Rotten thing. But it is the way forward. There are going to be some huge problems. Well, you can't blame me really, but I've got one of these web ferrets. You know, web ferret. It was sent to me by a lovely man who puts on the gaming, the gaming conventions. Black Rose. No, the Black Roses. Do you know the Black Rose? Well, this, sorry? It's the Black Rose of the Vampires. And there's a huge, great convention at Loughborough University called Gen Con, where they had the live role playing and all that. And they gave me this. I daren't take it off. Somebody might come and bite me on the neck or something. But, no, going back to the computers, I'm sure every actor has done it. That's what I thought. Typed in Michael Sheard, you see, and this web ferret thing that the guy had sent me as an attachment told me what to do. So I just pressed it, and the sort of feet go round like that. And I don't know if I've even told Ros this story, but there you go. It's all going down for posterity now. Up it came. I've certainly told her that it was something like 349 mentions of Michael Sheard, you see. In amongst the whole thing. Now, I'm sure this is done on purpose, but in amongst it, I saw that this word porn came up. Well, I know I've done what if you've read the book you should know. He hasn't, you see. I get him every time. That I and a lovely dumpy lady had some hilarious days revoicing Swedish girly films into English. Anyway, I thought maybe that's it. But no, it isn't. It's a problem that's going to, you know, it's got to be faced. Real hard porn, you know, which is a great shame. And how they got on, I'm sure that somebody goes through and gets all the names there of celebrities and pops them in, do you know what I mean? So that every time you ask for, or somebody dials you up, there you go. Dreadful. Anyway, I'm sure it'll all sort itself out in the end. Have you got a question yet?
If you weren't an actor, would there be something else that you would have done?
That's a very good question, actually, yeah. Having said that I always wanted to be an actor, right from the start, I say this with modesty, but I would like anyway to have had a crack at teaching, because I now visit a lot of sixth formers, and we have chats, much as we're doing now, and not the playing of Mr. Bronson, but it was a bit like school in that when the youngsters got up to the top of the school, they quite often used to come to me and say, Michael, what do I do now? Where do I go? How do I find out about this and that and the other? And poor chap. But John Alford is one that springs to mind, you know, the poor guy's got set up, didn't he? And I was delighted in, you know, the way his career went to, it's from London's Burning, wasn't it?
Quite well.
Yeah, I mean, it's nothing really to do with me, but we did have chats about agents and, everything, you know, national insurance and so on and so forth. So that's the answer, I think. I don't know. I won't know now, but I do enjoy sort of helping people along, maybe, you know, sort of. So thank you for that question. It was worth waiting for, isn't it? That's good. Now, does this mean we've had it? Oh, fine. Well, I tell you what we do. I don't know what's next on the programme after this.
Dinner's running a little late, isn't it?
Is it?
Yes.
All right, well, I tell you what, supposing I say that we're not allowed to have dinner until everybody's asked a question.
Good idea.
I've got one.
Go on in.
What was it like working with Stephen Lewis and Reg Varney on the buses? Did you enjoy your time there?
Yes, I did very much, actually. Reg I did the last series, and Reg left, gosh, about a quarter of the way through. And then there was a sort of reshuffle. I used to do a lot of comedy in those days, for London Weekend in particular. But I also did the movie afterwards, Holiday on the Buses. And the director was, do you remember, well you must remember, though, Craig Bentley. You know, the boy who was, he'd got a pardon, finally, on the roof in Croydon. And the one who didn't pull the trigger was shot because he was of an age. And I played a rather nasty Sergeant Fairfax in, again, it was a sort of play of the month for the BBC, called To Encourage the Others. And Brian Izzard saw it and he said, ah, that's the guy I want to play the manager of the buses. So you never know where it's going to come from. He's a character, yes, he's still with us. He's a character like the business needs. He's about 6'4", huge and camp, but he's very good at his job. And it was interesting, very interesting working with him and Stephen, and oh golly, what's his name?
Blakey?
Bob Grant.
Bob Grant.
Yeah.
Stephen and Bob wrote quite a few of the scripts, which was very nice. And I'm delighted to see Stephen popping up in Last of the Summer Wine and things like that. I think it's great.
He doesn't seem to change. Does he?
No, he doesn't.
I see him, he looks exactly the same.
It's quite extraordinary, yeah. It is amazing. But yeah, it's as we were saying earlier, I've got really nothing but happy memories, and that is why I insisted with the book. I said, yes, I'll have a go, but I'm not going to write a kiss and tell. Because I love the business too much, you know. I want to write about the nice, happy times. And no, that was a great one, great one. Kept on writing. As you see, to start at the beginning, I can't remember how many episodes there were in the last series, 30. But it was rather like Auf Wiedersehen, Pet. Originally in Auf Wiedersehen, Pet, I think I was doing 4 episodes, because they didn't need the manager of the builders, you know, to cite every episode. But then they kept on writing me back in. And a similar sort of thing happened with On the Buses. I can't remember how many I did eventually, but it was enough to for me to go into the movie as well. So it was quite. Okay, so we've had. What about the young lady behind? Do you want some dinner? Sorry, I don't mean to be taking your.
No.
I mean anything. Ask me what I had for breakfast or something.
If there's any programme you'd want to acting, would it be?
You see, there's some very good questions coming out, aren't there? I hope you've got a good one.
I think I have, but I think you partly answered it in some other.
Oh, well, I'll find another way. Let's deal with this one. What you mean? Any programme that I haven't been in that I'd like to do? Is that what you mean?
Any programme?
Yes, basically.
Yeah.
Yes.
Not that many, you know, really, because I've happily done. I would loved. Do you know Gilbert and Sullivan? Yeah? You don't. All right. Well, let's skip that one. I would love to have done been in the Jonathan Miller production of The Mikado when he turned it on its head. What a lovely idea. That they weren't Japanese at all. They were just sort of rather upper crust English people having a bit of a laugh. But anyway, let me see. Yeah, we've just been talking about comedy, for example. I am a great admirer of David Jason. And I, in fact, did the very first telly he ever did, and it's been long, long forgotten now.
Sharp intake of breath.
No, long before that.
What before that?
It was called The Top Secret Life of Edgar Briggs. And he played Edgar Briggs. And I played the nasty, I suppose, communist from the other side of the wall or the line or whatever, who was trying to confuse him and get him to cross the line so I could arrest him. I would therefore have liked to work with him again. I would like to have done a Porridge, for example. Or, yeah, Only Fools for Horses too. So, yeah, but that,
Only Bunch of Money.
I did that.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right, yes, that's right, you did that, yeah. You done that. What about Frost?
No, I didn't do Frost. I don't particularly, you know, I mean, yeah, I perhaps should have said work with David in comedy. I've nothing against Frost, but not particularly. I think the BBC does it better, or did it better, in the old days. Right, let's have your question that I've already answered then. Wait for this, this is a great one, this.
No, it's not great as such. What was your... I know you disagreed with certain usage of the word K9, with the dog being taking up most of the scenery.
Yes.
But that particular story, the Invisible Enemy, working with that multi-legged prawn.
Well, yeah, I'll be honest, I don't remember that as well, for example, as Dragon's Domain, Space 1999.
That's tremendous, if you say.
I know, well, everything I do is tremendous.
Yeah.
But I suppose really it's because of the dog, and you know, we joked about it ever since, really. I saw John really quite recently somewhere at some do or other, and I'm delighted because he's going to do the voice, isn't he, for the animated series. But I shall go on metaphorically kicking it forevermore. Do you know, I rack my brains, I cannot remember how they work the prawn.
Well, there's a character inside.
That's right.
But they had the sort of like little rods sort
Yeah.
of playing about inside.
It's wonderful, that reminds me of the most lovely thing. It's in the new book as well. But, Mike Edmonds is one of our small actors. And he plays bits and pieces in the Star Wars. And when we do conventions together, he's played Logray, I think, one of the little people. He's a super guy, is Mike. We're going out to, God, Belgium to do a convention. Yes, Belgium. And he has a little sign, you see, set up. Mike Edmonds, Logray, so-and-so, so-and-so. Jabba the Hutt, tail operator. And he actually was inside of working the tail. And it just conjures up the most wonderful picture of Mike inside this flipping tail, running up and down like mad, hoping like mad that Jabba doesn't fart. But you see, you are wonderful appreciators, and I, you know, without, as I always say to any of my chums who come on this, look, you know, put one of these convention things, what do you think? Is there money to be made? I said, no, not really. But I say to them, if you don't enjoy conventions, don't do them, because
Yeah, that's
it's
quite right,
not
yeah.
fair. It communicates itself to the appreciators and the whole thing falls down. And it really isn't fair. There are one or two who will do it for the money that they can make out of it, but I mean, I went out to, oh God, that's beautiful. That's in the new book, just got it in. Did a convention in Roanoke, in the Blue Ridge Mountains. And to get there, you have to go to Philadelphia and then do an internal. And my internal was cancelled coming back, and they had to reroute me through Pittsburgh. But I had a 3-hour wait, and I sat there in the cafeteria area, and I had, you know, I don't know, muffins and treacle or something like that. Very, very bad for you, I'm sure. But looking out at the Blue Ridge Mountains, and every so often a plane came in, little one, so that it wouldn't disturb the tranquility. Now all that side of it I love, but I also love conventions, and that, I will say this with modesty, is why I haven't done one convention this year that I haven't been asked back next year, which is unusual because they like usually to see new faces. But you've got to enjoy it. And I get the, I mean, we, do you not go to other conventions?
I do.
Yeah. Have we ever met before though, have we?
No.
No.
This is the first time I've ever met him.
In the flesh.
I've enjoyed your work over the years, I must say that, you know.
Well, that's,
First of all, I've known you from Doctor Who,
yeah.
but Erin, you've got a face where you think, I'm not guy. And also, in Pyramids of Mars, that's the first time I ever saw you, was in Pyramids of Mars.
Well, that actually, Pyramids of Mars was, I was going to, in fact, mention that. I loved every bit of Pyramids of Mars, except, I'm afraid, we're going back to monsters again. I thought the carpet on the floor, up in Mars, or whatever it was, didn't quite work for some reason. You're going to violently disagree with me now, aren't you?
No.
Well, I enjoyed that story because mainly I like Egyptology. So,
Yeah.
It was mainly Egyptology, a bit of myth as well. But anything Gothic, I love. I love Gothic. I read another one after the Pyramids of Mars. The Brain of Morpheus was based on Frankenstein's monster.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that as well because it was very, very Gothic.
I was up at Yorkshire Television not so very long ago, and I'm in the bar having a little noggin, and suddenly I heard this screech, and I suddenly out of the corner of my eye this person come rushing across, almost, well, because she's very small, leapt on me and hugged and all the rest of it. It was Paddy Russell, who directed Pyramids of Mars. Lovely lady.
Would I presume that would be one of your favourite Doctor Who's?
Pyramids of Mars?
Yes.
I loved them all. I loved them all. I would say that, now this is a funny one. The Invisible Enemy is probably my favourite, because it was a pretty marvellous part. Start off with.
Especially because you got the chance there to sight the Doctor's brain in.
That's right, yeah, but also he starts off as a goodie and then gets taken over. I saw the Mind of Evil not so very long ago, actually. Or was it? Yes, it was. It was when I went up to the Doctor Who Appreciation Society in Edinburgh. And very naughty. Jacqueline Pearce was their next guest, and they've asked her back before me. So very indignantly I rang up and said, "Oh no, we're waiting for the new book." But I thought it was very good. The only one I've done with the old reprobate, actually. And he looks about 22, but I look the same. But no, No, we were saying, as I was saying to Steve as he came in, that Nick rang me the other day, and he said, I don't think, I understand those signs, you know. I'm going to finish talking about my Doctor Who parts.
Yes,
And he said, I'm running out of things to say, which I think is wrong. I said, oh, don't be such a silly old fool. Okay, so we've cut. One thing I remember about the Ark is that we were all dressed in bits of ribbon. Dear old BBC must have run very short of cash, including the ladies, and there was one very fetching young lady dressed in ribbons. So that's those. Castrovalva, I never understood a word about it. I still don't understand it. Maybe that was part of its charm. I don't know. And I don't think Peter had a clue what was going on. That's the... Oh, and we also, gosh, Derek Waring. He was playing not a very large part, you see, but he had a line which went something like this: I must play my small part, or something like that. We used to crease. Very naughty. In rehearsal, I hasten to add, not on the set. Now, what about it? We talked actually about remembrance of the Daleks earlier on. She is a doll. As I say, we shared agents. Well, when she was with the same agent as I was with when she got the part in Doctor Who. Have I covered them all?
Yes.
Yes.
Have I?
Yeah.
I think. So I didn't keep things waiting too long.
There's no rush for it.
Well, we
No,
can
I'm
we
sure.
can do the raffle or auction or something.
What? You mean now?
Well, if
before
anyone
we-
still want to buy more tickets.
And before we do the sort of close, there is one question I would like to ask you.
Go on, yes, you have another question. Your personal question, have you?
You are friends with Roger Moore.
Yes.
When he was with 007 James Bond, would you love to play in a film with him as James Bond, or...
He's not read the book. You're stepping in it every single time you open your mouth.
I bought a book about a week ago. And
There is. I won't actually tell you about it, but the film, it was Roger's first. Now, who knows? Because first, it wasn't the first time I worked with him on that other one. What's that series with Tony Curtis?
Oh, the Persuaders.
It's Persuaders.
Persuaders.
Have you read that sequence?
No.
I won't embarrass you anymore. But Roger's first was Live and Let Die?
That's right, yeah.
You read the bit about Live and Let Die. But yes, he's lovely to work with. Bonds, there was a Bond on the other night, and my wife said, this has got 5 stars. It was a Sean Connery one, I think. So, yeah. You know,
Would you go back and do one again?
What?
At the Bond film, if I asked you?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. Nowadays, I think, I don't know, when was Live and Let Die?
Live and Let Die was 1970.
Early 70s, wasn't
Early 70s, was it?
Yeah, 71, 72.
Yeah. Well, a deal of water has flowed under bridges since then. But I am still a working actor. I am able now to pick and choose a little bit more. So if you're going to offer me a part in a Bond movie, it's going to have to be slightly better than Live and Let Die. I won't say any more.
Would you like to have sort of play a part of Q? Would that appeal to you?
yes, yes, yes. It's a bit samey. That was funny, isn't it? We were talking about female Doctor Who's earlier on. I think it's very clever to make M a woman. And that's I think maybe, who's the one that strokes the cat? Loafer.
Oh, Blofeld, yeah.
That would be more up my street. I mean, the baddies,
Yeah, I've seen
99
this film.
times. They are, the baddies are by far the more interesting parts to play. You know. And I can remember, and maybe you have read this or you haven't, but that if we're getting near it, and I think we seriously are, aren't we, a bit now. There's a film I did, not my very first film, but one of my very first. First time I got featured Billy was in a film called The Mackenzie Break. It's a damn good film. And the first 2 weeks there was just myself and an actor who was quite prominent, a German actor who was quite prominent at the time, called Helmut Green. And he and I were having, he was playing the third lead. Ian Hendry was the other one, and lovely Brian Keith. And we were having, Helmut and I were having dinner one night, and he said, now you have a nice part in this film, now you want to become a big star. And I, for the first time, thought about it, and said, no, I don't think so, really. I want to get good parts, but I don't want to be a star particularly. I want to play interesting parts and build on that. And then, because his face fell, it was the Germans, yes. And I said, but apart from anything else, Helmut, you must remember that if this movie fails, it's not my fault, it's yours. So there we go. I'm enjoying myself. Is there another question coming, or was that just a blow?
No. In the series I've Been Saying Pet,
Yeah.
you play the, pardon the expression, rather straight German actor, construction manager.
Yes.
In the scene, the character Jimmy Nail plays a rather violent attack on you at one stage.
Yeah.
Did you have to, shall we say, stage that, or was that just sort of spontaneous?
Well, it probably spontaneous on his part, but you have to, if you've got any sense, which a lot of actors don't, and I can't say that I am any exception. I always remember, can't remember the series, but it was starring somebody they brought, an actor they brought over from Italy. Series made by the BBC. Flipping awful, anyway.
Eldorado?
No, it was long before that. I'll tell you who was in it. Leo Genn. It's one of the last things he did. Anyway, I was asked, you know, there is this scene where you are pushed out of a train. And the trains are going to be travelling at 2 miles an hour, and there's going to be lots. I said, well, I'm not a stuntman, actually, but in those days you said yes, which is very foolish, because there are stunt people out there whose job it is to show you how it's done, you know. And so it would have been choreographed to some extent. And he wasn't that straight. He was discovered in a naughty porno house at one stage, which in fact they used as blackmail, if you remember, to let
A certain person.
Kevin, it wasn't
Yeah.
it, keep his job, because they'd smuggled him in. But I think you get a little bit older and a bit wiser as the years go by. I was working on I wasn't there that night, but I was working on the Softly Softly where the stuntman got killed. Does you remember that?
No.
He had to leap over the wall, and this is why stuntmen always lay their own boxes, and he put them too close to the wall. So he went and landed there and killed himself, which is very, very sad, but it does happen. You know, it's a lovely little guy who doubles for me in movies, and he was quite like me, actually. But there again you'll read when you get into the book, you see. Because any actor worth his salt will not just hand over to the stunt guy. He will say, well, no, you know, I pick my nose with my left hand, not my right, or whatever it may be. And so that when he does take over and double for you, then he can. Now there's a nice one to finish with, perhaps. Just occurred to me. But then I always think that stunt double should be very carefully discussed, and also you should discuss things with him as well, wins or not, or a no, not a wins or not. No, I'm sorry I stumbled there because I was trying to think of the best way of putting it. It's a rather nice one, this actually. Does anybody remember a film called Knock on Wood?
I've heard of it, but I can't recall it.
Yeah, starring Danny Kaye. Now Danny Kaye, it was all set in London, I should have said that. And Danny Kaye never set foot in this country whilst that film was being made. Somebody doubled for him, and My Zettering was in it. And somebody doubled for him, and there was a lot of outside shots, you know, long shots or shots going away from us or whatever it may be. Have a think.
John Pertwee.
Absolutely bang on, you see. There is a man who knows his Doctor Who. But he had, in those days, he had red hair, like Danny Kaye. And he does it marvellously. If you ever get a chance to see it, just have a look at it from that point of view, because every single shot, and they filmed all up and down Richmond and the Thames and round, you know, and it's all John. Right.
There we go.
Now, what would you like to do now, people?
Well, I think we'll do the raffle, shall we? Because we got time, haven't we? Because the potatoes aren't brown yet. We do the raffle and the auction. Yeah, so
The raffle and the auction.
We could break for a cup of tea or something. Yes.
Does anyone still want raffle?
Yeah, some
Yeah. I'd just like the same as Uncle Sheard.
No.
Thank you very much.
It's been a great pleasure, and thank you all very, very much. Why is that light going off and on?
Power to say it's